Hi,
Hello,
everyone.
hello.
Good evening, and welcome to the Choosify Foundation Summer Series. So, we have been going ahead and enjoying every Tuesday night with different guests who have hopped on in the financial space to discuss different concepts with us. And we've been doing that each Tuesday evening from 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So, continue to go ahead and join us. Tonight's discussion is going to be young entrepreneurs, and how to go ahead and start a business of their own. And a couple of weeks back, we went ahead and looked at how to discuss raising responsible money managers. And there's no better way to extend that conversation and to jump into entrepreneurship with two members of our financial space who are actually entrepreneurs themselves, dabbled in it, also have young kids, and are dabbling it and living it. So, without further ado, let's welcome our two hosts tonight who are going to join us and dabble and have an excellent conversation. So, welcome Rob Phelan and welcome Vincent Puglisi.
Apparently, my name's Danny Mendonza, but we'll roll with it for tonight.
That's okay.
Hey, everyone. My name's Rob Phelan. I've been your host on previous episodes of the summer series, but this time Danny's taking the host role. I'm sitting in the panelist role. I have a side business called The Simple Startup, where I help 10 to 18-year-olds start their very first businesses for as cheaply as possible, as fast as possible, and then grow it and manage it in a responsible way. I'm also a full-time math and personal finance teacher in Maryland and the author of a children's book, M is for Money. Over to you, Vincent.
Hey, everybody. I am Vincent Puglisi. I am the owner of Total Life Freedom, which is an entrepreneurial mastermind and community for entrepreneurs in the creative space and all over. We have 3 kids. Each of them is not required, but if they want to have money, they have to have their own business. So from a young age, we've been working with them on that. And as Danny said, it's teaching them not only entrepreneurial skills, but also money management and how to handle things from a young age to start their life off right. So that's a little bit about us.
So I get that's actually the first question I was going to throw your way, Vincent, is I've obviously a parent and I wear the parent hat as well as the Choosify hat, and I'm looking to try and do my best to introduce my kids to concepts at a young age. So my first question to you is, in general, to both of you, entrepreneurship, what age is too young? When do we start?
It's a great question because I think a lot of people think that you have to wait to really get them to understand. I think one of the best things we said from a very early age was we're not giving you any money. That requires them to be creative. It requires them to be innovative. Like, yeah, we go out to eat and we'll pay for it. And we go on, when we do the stuff with them, we'll buy their clothes. But if they want things, from 6 years old, they don't need very much money. So to earn a little bit around the house, a couple dollars makes a big difference if they want to buy a candy bar or a Matchbox car or something like that. So it's like, to make $5, that's kind of a cool thing where they can then go buy what they want. You then get to understand the concept of saving and spending, and even generosity in terms of gifts for your brothers for their birthday, for mom to buy her a card for Mother's Day, to really start bringing this in from an early age. It just grows from there, where it's like, wait a second, once I figure this out, I might not like doing this thing anymore, but let me try this thing. And what it allows them to do is fail without really feeling like they're failing, because if it doesn't work out, let's just try the next thing that levels up. Our kids have had, our 10-year-old now has probably been in 6 different types of businesses already, little ones, but each one is growing onto the next one. So that's, I don't think, it could be too young to get started.
So just for the audience, remind us briefly of your kids' ages. So we're kind of jumping in and they are aware of what you're talking about with 6 different businesses already under their belt and 6 different ideas. How old are they?
Our oldest is 15, about turned 16. 15, 13, and 10 are our 3 boys.
Okay, so that definitely does excite me as a young parent with like a 4-year-old and 22-month babe, getting started young and letting them kind of take some control and guiding it where possible. Rob, would you add anything to that?
Well, my little mogul is almost 2. So not any like businesses on his end, but certainly a lot of experience in terms of getting young kids to start businesses. And I liked what Vincent said. If kids want something, this is a great opportunity to say to them like, hey, yeah, it's absolutely okay to want things, but money doesn't just come from nowhere. It has to be earned. And most money that we have is an exchange of our energy, our time, our strength, whatever you want to call it, our brains, for money, which we can then choose to spend in whatever way we want, or save it, or invest it, or give it, all those fun things that come with choices that you can do with money. So yeah, I loved everything Vincent said there.
So you talked about 6 different businesses. And obviously, kids are going to be very different. Their personalities are going to show through those businesses. Talk to me a little bit about some of the things you experienced as, wearing that parent hat with your kids. What kind of ideas should you encourage? What ideas did you encourage? How did you get to these 6 different businesses in the first place, Vincent?
Yeah, it first started where we didn't know. Like, I don't know what you're going to do, but we're going to do something. And I think the beautiful thing about being an involved parent is it's fun. You get to work on it together. The first thing they did, we actually just had the flashback show up on our Facebook page 2 days ago. The first thing they did was 5 years ago was we painted flag pallets. They painted pallets. We would go to Lowe's and we saw one on a porch. We're like, we could do that. So you guys can do that. I'll bring the truck and we'll load up some pallets. They give them away for free at Lowe's. So we got like 8 of them, threw them into the truck, brought them home. And then, okay, let's buy some red, white, and blue paint. We're coming up on 4th of July. Let's paint them. So we have pictures outside of them spending 2 or 3 days in the backyard painting them. They were selling them between $20 and $60 a pallet. And they sold, I think, 12 of them for that first summer. That gave them a good taste. Now, we knew that wasn't sustainable. We're not going to be able to dry them all over the place. We're not going to be able to ship them. But we learned really early, like, okay, maybe a big product for your age isn't going to be the best thing, but it made them some money. It got them some confidence. Then that started rolling into their interests. At first, it was kind of like, actually not yet. At first, it was like, how can you just make money? The oldest one started mowing lawns. Very simple business that anybody could do and any kid could do. And you'd be surprised how many people will hire you just because you're an ambitious 13-year-old, because people aren't used to seeing that. So they want to give you the money for that. So it started from like, okay, how do we make money, to then eventually over time, well, what are you interested in? What are the things that excites you that you can actually start developing into a niche thing? And then you saw it with our son when we saw you guys a couple weeks ago, now into their own interests, which our oldest is bugs, turning, it's going to be multiple types of income from one idea that he's interested in.
Absolutely. So I'm going to pause that just to introduce our an additional guest that we have, Patrina Dixon, who has joined us with It's My Money. So Patrina, at this very time, we can't see you just quite yet. So if you dabble with your camera, we'd love to see you. I know that our audience would too. But I'm going to kind of get you caught up to speed. So far, we have discussed just an introduction to entrepreneurship. We're looking at how can our kids get started. And that's what Vincent has just been talking to us about, some ideas about going ahead and getting your kids started in entrepreneurship. And the first question I threw to him was, how young is too young? And we just basically decided in a short dialogue back and forth that it's not too young. Dabble, parents, get started, let them try some things. And so that's excited me, wearing a parent hat, is to kind of let my kids explore and not kind of stop some of those creative geniuses starting to flow. I think our current project at home is sculpting clay and potentially going ahead and selling that. So we'll see where that takes us. That's our current 4-year-old mindset, but we will see. So, Rob, tell me a little bit more about, in terms of that running a business. I know that you're wearing the hat of simple startup tonight. Tell me a little bit about how you would encourage your young entrepreneurs to get started, helping them start to run a business, to promote that business and start to take it over. Tell us about the ground steps. You've got some young entrepreneurs. Where do they start? What kind of topics do you talk to them about?
So, I mean, usually I think it's easier for the younger kids sometimes because they don't have that creativity that's kind of been stamped out of them by the school system at that point. Younger kids, they're full of ideas. They've no inhibitions about what they can and can't do. So it's very easy for them. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to start an art business. I'm going to start a music business. I'm going to go busk on the sidewalks and people are going to pay me money. That lemonade stand, yeah, of course I'm going to make money. Why wouldn't I make money? I'm amazing. And younger kids are just full of this creativity and confidence. And then as we get older, we lose a little bit of that confidence because we start becoming so aware of what our peers are doing and what people are thinking about us or how we think about ourselves. And it becomes a bit more of a challenge. And then on the creativity side, kids it's getting lower and lower, but around 13 years old will start self-identifying as not being as creative. So if you ask kids all the way up through grade school, into high school, how creative would you say you are? We'll notice kids on the younger end, super creative. They think like they're amazing. They can come up with anything. And then you get to high school and they're like, no, I'm not really creative. It's not really my thing. That's some gene that I don't have. And I refer to it as the entrepreneurship muscle, that people actually think it's a gene. It's more of a muscle. It's something that you can work out, you can get better at with practice and trying it out. And that's where I really encourage parents to start thinking about with their kids is like, okay, you may also not feel very creative or entrepreneurial, but you and your kids can start dabbling in small things like Vincent talked about with the lawn mowing business or taking care of pets, walking animals, house sitting, like those car washes, like those are your classic ones that come up over and over again because they're good ideas. They're very basic and they're very easy to set up, and people like helping and supporting those things. And you can learn lessons along the way from that.
So far you've talked about kind of a couple of business ideas. You alluded to the fact that some of them are easier than others. And so with the parent hat, that immediately kind of my red flag goes up, right? Let's talk maybe roughly 3 to 4 ideas that you might want to kind of talk about out loud that might encourage some parents to get started in some way. I know just the other day, my little kid, I set him up with a babysitting fish and looking after a cat. Just at 4, he went next door to go ahead and earn some money by dabbling and looking after those pets for 4 days, where he'll earn a little bit of money each day. And so that's one way of getting started. And then now being able to talk about that earning of money and what we might be able to do with that. But give me some ideas, Vincent.
We go to initially, before you have your own interests, and I think it's the same way for adult entrepreneurs. Before you have your own interests, what problems are you solving? What problems are you solving for other people? Now, eventually it'll blend to all of it. But our 13-year-old, right before we just moved from Pittsburgh to Florida, literally a couple of days ago. And through the lawn mowing led to more relationships and connections. And then one of the guys was like, well, we're going away for vacation for a week. We just need our flowers watered. Simplest job, 10 minutes. And go over to the house and just water the flowers. And when you start thinking about, well, what problems could I solve? It really starts looking like, well, it's not how I can make money. It's how I can help somebody. And for a young kid, it's usually probably, like you said, within your neighborhood, pet sitting, all these little things, picking up sticks. If you could just start getting them to feel what it's like to do the work and to earn the income, that's what Rob was talking about, the confidence. You have to understand at that age, people really do want to help. Now, if you come at 24 years old wanting to water, the flowers, I don't know if I really want to, it's kind of a little creepy maybe or weird, but at 5, it's like, let me just pay you something so I would do that in a heartbeat. Let me give you $10, go do that. Because I want to encourage that. Now, if they get that money and go, I just made $10 for doing that, they're going to start thinking of new ideas. I can tell you that they will start coming to you and start saying, can I do this? And that's when the discussions happen. But when it really comes to, can I solve problems for somebody else? What does somebody else need done that I can help them with? That's every single time. That was the thing that, except for the Flag Palace, which is an idea, the money that they've made up until now has been solving other people's problems and then growing skills and income from there.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's jump in with what are your skills, what are your talents, what do you like to do already, and then just what would that look like as a business in terms of how can it solve a problem for somebody else? How can you use what you got to already solve a problem? And identifying the resources that are available to you as well is another big one. So I imagine, like Vincent, in your case, you probably had paintbrushes or stuff already that you're like, okay, we don't have to buy all the equipment to do this. We've got the brushes. Maybe if we need to fix some pallets, we can do that. And then all we got to do is buy some paint. And we had some stuff to get ourselves started.
Yeah, totally. And what I think is really fun about it is, it's like when we went to Arizona a couple of years ago, we went for 3 months and immediately it was like, okay, well, how are you going to make some money? And you look around like, okay, well, in Pittsburgh, we didn't have this problem, but in Arizona, people had weeds like crazy growing out of their yards in the rocks because they can't have grass lawns. They have rock lawns and all these weeds. Well, we learned very quickly that they will get fined if they don't have that cleaned up because the neighbors don't. So what adult wants to go around their front yard pulling these little weeds from their yard? Nobody. And do they want spray? Probably not. Maybe knocking on the door, Dylan's first knock, $5 job and a $10 job. Within 2 weeks, they went to this one house, weed everywhere. Like, you got nothing else to do today. It was a Sunday. They knocked on the door. They offered them $100. And the guy was like, how about $100 for everything? And it was huge. I kind of like, they weren't sure. He goes, okay, $200. And they looked at each other like, oh my God, let's get bags. They spent the whole day. Guy gave him $200, gave him a $50 tip. Plus he had an Xbox in the garage he wasn't doing anything with. So he got $250 in an Xbox. If you didn't think they were excited after that, they were like, can we do some more weeds?
Yeah,
like, let's go.
Petrina, are you there? Do you have any ideas for starting a business? I'm not sure if she's able to join the stream yet or not.
So Rob, are you able to hear me, Rob?
Yes, we can.
We are. Fantastic.
Okay, great. So I apologize. The technology where I am right now is horrible. But I agree with Vincent. I think it's solving the problem. I think that is definitely critical no matter what age you are. The thing I will add to what Vincent said is enjoy what you're doing. Because especially if it's something that you want to go into from an entrepreneurship standpoint, if you go with what people need solved for, then it becomes a job, right? And entrepreneurship is not supposed to feel like you're working for a 9 to 5. It's not supposed to feel like you're not enjoying what you're doing. So I think I would complement that by saying you want to make sure that you are skilled at what you're doing, and it's solving a problem, but you also enjoy doing it, because that way you'll be okay with working more than 40 hours a week doing whatever it is. Because I think it was, her name is escaping me right now, but she plays on Shark Tank. She says entrepreneurs are the only people that would trade working 40 hours a week for 8 hours a week. So you have to wickedly enjoy working 80 hours a week at something. So that's what I would say to that. And I think that holds true to kids as well. I think understanding earning your money, doing something that solves, but make sure you like it, because otherwise you're like dragging them out of the bed to pull the weeds or to mow the lawn or to, plow the snow or whatever it is. So that's what I would add to that.
So just so far, for those viewers who have joined us recently and haven't gotten to know who the voice behind those words of wisdom are, this is Petrina Dixon, and she is in the financial space and comes to us with It's My Money. So if you're at all interested in where she's coming from, that is what if you were to type in It's My Money, correct, Petrina, you'd be able to dabble and find out as to how she looks further at youth and adults and makes people more intentional about their money decisions. But couple of you have talked on something that I do want to go ahead and acknowledge, but that's that grit, right, that you're attempting to try and get your kids to have. And for me, as a parent, I would do anything that I can to model and mentor a skill set that encourages my kids to have grit and go get them. But if something fails, to keep going back at it. So let's talk a little bit about some failures potentially, Vincent, that your kids might have had so far, where you've had to have some other conversations with them, because I'm sure parents would be the same way. You've poured yourself into something, you're watching your kid be excited about something and then also disappointed. Tell me a little bit more about your experience with that, Vincent.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I do it right at all, but I do know that I don't have a problem with quitting the way other people do, because I quit things I don't want to do. And maybe it's my ADHD, maybe it's the way that I move, but I always kind of feel like the next thing has to be a level up. And just because I decide to start something, now this could be taken the wrong way, right? Because I'm not all about just kind of starting something willy-nilly then ending it. But for instance, our kids had to start a lawn mowing business for the last 2 or 3 years. And then it built up to where they both did it. They traded jobs. And what happens is, they did very well with it. They were getting good paying jobs. They were reputable. People liked working with them. Once they started dabbling some other things, like our oldest with, we might talk about later, he has his bugs, his tarantulas and his scorpions, and he's doing a blog about it, and he goes out and he gets tips. He does birthday parties. Our middle son does balloon animals for parties and does it at parks and gets tips. Once they started doing that, they came back to the lawn mowing and they were like, I'm not sure I like the lawn mowing as much anymore, right? Because it's like, now I'm out there and I'm pushing that around. They kind of they had fun with this other one. This other one was for making money. They didn't really enjoy it. And that's cool. We all have to do things to make money that we don't always enjoy to start with. The more you get your money together, the more you get your habits down, the less things you don't have to do that you don't want to do. And you do more of what you do want to do. So I was totally cool with, hey, if you want to put that time towards your balloons, towards making the business card, towards a website and building those businesses, that's great. doesn't matter to me if you quit that, as long as you are progressing and doing something. So I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying our perspective is like, if this is where you're going as an entrepreneur, we're constantly pivoting all the time. And to get stuck where you go, well, I said I was going to do this, I'm going to keep doing this. I sometimes talk people out of that because I think they feel like this obligation they have to stay. If you don't do longer, that's fine. You're still going to have to make your own money. You're still going to have to work. Where are you going to go? And I have no problem with them leveling up towards their own interests and building their own thing. So I think some parents might not like that answer. That's kind of where we go with it.
Well, that actually kind of takes me back to the classroom, even when I encourage kids to pick up a book versus drop it, right? You know when you're further enough into a book, whether you like it or not, and be able to drop it and move on. So sorry for interrupting you. I'm going to let Patrina tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that, and then we're going to go to Rob.
Yeah, so I'll take it from the fail standpoint as opposed to the quitting. I think the way that I think about failing and how you talk through that or work through that is learn from that experience. So not everything that you start will land in success. So how can you learn from that? What can you do with what didn't work well? So instead of mulling in that, take that experience, and when you go into the next thing, make sure that you don't do the same thing that caused failure before, and grow from that, learn from that, remove things that didn't work, expand upon things that worked well. And if it was a total flop, know that the next day is a new day to start over. So that's that's the prong that I would go from, is when you think about failure, know that many people have failed before and still succeeded. When I talk to young people, I always talk about one of my favorite basketball players, and that's Michael Jordan, who we all should know as I'll call him one of the best basketball players ever, but he also missed a lot of shots. He also didn't make the team initially. So I think those are examples of you can fail and still be successful. How do you learn from that, and how do you get better and refine your skills so that sort of stuff doesn't happen again? So that's how I would approach that for a failure as opposed to a quitting.
Rob, your thoughts?
I would ask parents to say, like, how do you react when you fail? Because at the end of the day, our kids are going to look at what we're modeling, and they're going to base their response on that. You can tell them all you want, like, oh yeah, you can fail, it's great, it's wonderful, but you just got to pick yourself back up and do it again. If you're the kind of person who like stubs their toe and is like, whatever with this, I'm done with it, I'm not doing it anymore, and as Vincent said, you're not quitting towards something, or Trina said, you're not taking it as a learning lesson, you're getting back up and doing it again, your kids are not going to pick that up either. And I think that's really important, that parents, you got to realize, or guardians, teachers, you got to realize your role in this too, as a role model for kids and showing them how to react to failure. Because failure just means that it didn't work for you that particular time. It's only a true failure if you stop at that point and never try again. You can always quit. And I like what Vincent said, like, quitting is not a bad thing, especially if you're doing something that doesn't particularly bring you joy. It's not fun for you. It's dangerous. You can always quit. I like to say that you got to quit towards something. You got to have something else lined up, a different idea, something else you want to try, versus just saying, well, I'm giving up and I got nothing else. I got no plan. So if your kids are telling you, like, I don't like this anymore, I don't really want to do this, say, that's okay, that's fine. But I want you to try and figure out what you're going to do instead of it, so that when you do end this, you can start that next thing up and try it out. And it doesn't have to be a business. Sorry. There's
natural consequences that come with it. We've had that up multiple times where our kids were kind of like, they just kind of faded. They kind of got lazy. That's cool, right? And I think the impetus could be like, oh, kind of push them. That's what I would normally do. Step back and be like, what's life like for 2 weeks without working at all? Your money starts to dwindle. Natural consequences come from that, where you go, oh, I know you want to buy that tank, right? That remote control tank, but you can't buy it because all right, what can I do to make some money? And that's how it starts from there again. And what happens is, the more that they fail, and I'm not sure if they're failures, it just didn't work out yet. What's beautiful as parents is they become teachable moments, because you'll be able to say, remember 3 years ago when it didn't work out, and then from that came this thing? The earlier the kids get started, the more they keep doing it, you have reference and you have history to go back to confirm to them, listen, you did this and then you did this thing. It did work out. Remember the money you made from it? You get to bring back their own history and their own successes and even their failures, how it led to the next thing. And it gives them the confidence to be like, it's not a big deal to fail. So the more that they do and fail, the less it matters to them 3 years later, because it's like, okay, that happened before. And that's resiliency. And that's a real big part of it, is to develop that resiliency.
And I love kind of taking it back to an earlier conversation that, or word that Rob used, was muscle memory, right? The more that you go ahead and fail, or go ahead and trial and error, your muscle is starting to grow, right? Your entrepreneurial muscle is starting to grow and kind of get to find out who you are as a little person. And so as a parent, for me, I've started to hear a couple of instances where you say, okay, so they've earned this amount of money. And we're talking a little bit about dialogues that we now have with our kids. Are there any dialogues that you would have regarding, for example, marketing, what you do with that money, what you start to location, target audience? Tell us a little bit more about, and I'm going to throw this one at you, Rob. Talk to me a little bit about how you would start them thinking further than, okay, this is my idea. How do you get them to now kind of think more long-term, longevity? What comes next? Some of my decisions now affect later. So I'm starting to now actually think bigger than this is just my idea, and start to now put in kind of like your business plan, right? Your blueprint. Tell me a little bit more about what you would do.
So with my students, the first thing we do is come up with an idea, or usually we try and come up with 20. So we try and overdo it. We try and really get that muscle working and say, okay, find 20 problems, propose solutions to those problems that people potentially want to pay for. And then we try and rank them based on which one we're most excited about, which one's easiest to start. But once you have an idea and you're ready to start developing it, I like to do a business snapshot. And this is based on the Canvas model. So if you want to Google this, it's called the business Canvas model. And it's not a business plan. Business plan, for anyone who doesn't know, is like this big document that you would take usually to an investor, and you would say to them, this is what my business currently looks like. This is what I think is going to happen. All the research that I have that backs it up. And I think you should put your money into it because I can prove to you that's going to grow. A business snapshot, on the other hand, is just, this is what my idea is, and this is what it looks like if I think about who I have to work with, what I'm going to do, what I need to get started, how much I'm going to charge, what are my costs. It's just kind of a couple of questions that would guide a young entrepreneur before they get started. So yeah, if they've got an idea, just start asking them questions like, okay, who's going to buy it from you? How much do you think they're willing to pay for it? What are you going to do if a customer doesn't like what you do? Or what are you going to do if a customer asks you to do something else instead? Those are just kind of great questions that you as a parent, you're a customer, you know what you might ask them as a customer. Start asking those questions and just see what the responses are.
I'm going to throw it to you next, Patrina. How would you go ahead with your kind of young kiddos? So you are encouraging, just correct me if I'm wrong, but your kind of kids that you're looking at would be slightly older, high school into adults. Am I correct? How would you encourage them to kind of continue to move forward with that idea? Thinking about cost. Do you get them to start a bank account, to put something, to have something in place? How do you even kind of take that money, that first bit of money that they've earned? What do you do next?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd be remiss if I didn't start with the money, right? So it's my money lady, so it's always about the money. But yes, I would to piggyback what Rob said is there is a plan, right? You have to have a plan. What is it that you're trying to do? Who you're trying to serve, and why do you think this will be a viable business? And then talk about the things that you need that would cost money to make the business happen. And then we go into how much you think the business can make, because it may be a service-based business, it may be a product-based business. So if you want to make $5,000, how many services do you need to perform? How many products that you need to sell in order to get that out? So whatever that number is, how do you get that message out? How do you find your customer? That gets to the cost. So again, I didn't know about the plan that he mentioned where you can find that, but I create, because I teach entrepreneurship in the money around it and the budgeting for it. So in doing that, it's thinking about it just like we would a business plan, somebody our age, go through the same steps and then add the budget into it, because you do not want to have a wonderful business and you can do all these great things and you're still and it'll solve this, but nobody knows about it. So you have to include how are you going to market it and who you're going to market it to. So I think those are really good components for your overall plan and grow your business.
So just thinking about even kind of an experience that I had today. I took my kids to a pool, and on the way there, passed some kids with a lemonade stand. And I always make sure I have some extra cash in my car to encourage and grow and get them started where possible, and to make sure that I'm at least that person that stopped for them. But in stopping, I realized that where they were even located, they were tucked behind a bend, and no one was really actually seeing these kids. And so my kind of seeing my husband's entrepreneurial spirit, I kind of had that, for lack of a better term, teaching moment where I sat and I said to the kids, "How's your location, guys? Have you had lots of traffic?" And so they said, "No, we actually haven't had that much traffic." And I said, "I don't know about you, but I had noticed that you're tucked away. You're not visible. What could you do to make yourself more visible?" So tell me a little bit about some of those kind of conversations that you might have had, Vincent, with your kids. And then also thinking about personality, right? You've got very different kids, and
Yep.
how you've all talked about having that blueprint, that roadmap, something down to get them started. But every kid's going to be different as they start. And from me, knowing my kids are different, I don't want to put one of my kids off by kind of going to that paper route where I might have someone that is more creative, that doesn't like the paper side of things to start. So talk to me a little bit about differences there too.
What I've learned the best is to be a guide and not just the teacher. I think it's so easy as parents we're the teacher. We're going to tell you what you should do. They learn by their own ideas. Our youngest son, when he was 4, 5, said, "I want to have a rock store. Rocks. He wanted to sell rocks." Okay. All right. So he's collecting all these rocks in the yard. Not only did he want to have a rock store, but he wanted to have the store in his room. So he put a lot of time into it. He had the rocks situated, here, he had the prices, 25 cents, all the whole thing. Let him do it, kind of had the conversation. Then it's like, well, does anybody really want to buy rocks? And I think he learned pretty quickly that nobody wanted to buy rocks. Is anybody really going to be walking through your room looking to buy rocks? He didn't want to hear it at first. This is what he wanted to do. Okay, that's cool. Go ahead. So he had a rock store in his room. Well, guess what? Talk about lack of traffic for a lemonade stand. There's a lot of lack of traffic in his bedroom for rocks. And he had to learn pretty quickly, I need to get out there. So he was little enough and cute enough that he made a sale across the street. Somebody bought a rock, but that quickly fizzled because who's buying rocks? So they needed to learn those lessons on their own. Like, there really was no visibility to it, and there wasn't a need for it. Nobody wanted them. Even though you wanted to sell them, nobody wanted to buy them. And I think it was a really good lesson that adults don't always know. How many people do we know, like, I'm building a course on this, and then they spend all the time into it, and then they get all the programs and they record it, they buy the microphone and the camera. Nobody buys it. Why? Nobody cared. Nobody wanted it. Nobody asked you for it. You did it because you wanted to do it, but you weren't solving a problem, so you spent all this time. I'd rather them learn that lesson at 5 to realize you can't sell what you want. You got to sell what others want, and where are they going to find it? So you've got to go out, and are you going to have visibility? Even the lemonade stand, are you going to do something that people want? We usually buy it because we're trying to help them, but rarely am I driving down the street saying I want a glass of lemonade from. I do it to support them, but it's really not solving a need. It's a good start, but I think it's just the natural American lemonade stand. I like them to be a little more creative and thinking about it as opposed to just the cookie cutter formula, which that can be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thinking about, and I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, but we've got this money. We've now had that first kind of aha, there might be a success. They're excited. For me, the financial, in me, I quickly think, okay, do we save? Do we invest? Like, we start to have some of those conversations, and that's where you're saying, oh, Mom, do not go ahead and teach. Do not go ahead and teach. But how are you kind of, and this is coming your way, Patrina, how do you get them now to start thinking about those ideas, right? We've got money. I can't probably, once I've earned a couple more dollars as it grows, hopefully, just keep it underneath my mattress. What am I going to do next?
So I missed the first part of what you said. So I heard the money underneath the mattress, but what did you say in advance of that?
So how do we get them to now starting to have thoughts about a bank account, running, promoting that business, marketing it, and looking further into that avenue of things?
Yeah, so it's one of the things that Vincent said is like, okay, now if you mow one lawn, you did well, you made that money, but imagine if you mowed 10, how much that can be. It's always, I think, also starting, no, understanding why. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? So if you're doing it because you have an end goal of a purchase, of something that you've been trying to buy for a long time that costs money, is it because that you want to, have this business and have people mowing lawns for you and you don't have to mow lawns at all? You want to start a business, like understand why you're doing what you're doing, and then that can determine how much money you need to put into what you're doing. So if it's just that I have money now, I need to understand what to do with it. Absolutely, it cannot grow underneath your mattress. So yes, and think about bank accounts, think about savings accounts. You need both of those. You need a checking account and a savings account. I encourage online only savings accounts because you can earn more interest that way. And then a checking account at your local brick and mortar because you may need to, for operating expenses, use the money to fix your lawnmower, whatever type of business, buy more lemonade, buy more cookie dough, whatever it is you're doing. So yes, I would definitely incorporate the banking aspects in how you store your money and watch it grow, because it cannot do that under the mattress. You can lose it. It can be stolen. I literally had a friend whose house burned down. If money was under the mattress, it would be gone. So yes, I do think that you should start to integrate the banking concepts as they begin to earn money.
Rob, is there anything that you might add to that?
I kind of liked what Vincent said earlier, where you just sort of let them see what happens. So like you stop working for 2 weeks, the money dries up, you blow it all on an Xbox game. Well, now you don't have the money to fix your lawnmower when it breaks or put gas in it. So I do think there is a little bit of trial and error that, like, especially when they're younger and we're talking very small amounts of money, you can still step back and just kind of watch it happen and just make sure that you're there to do damage control. I do like sitting down and having conversations, just asking questions like, okay, you've made $100. What can you do with that money? What do you want to do? What are your options? And just start going down different paths with them of like what they could do with the money. And you still, at the end of the day, should let them make a decision about what they want to do. Our goal as parents should probably be like, we want to eventually have our kids saving some, investing some, giving some, spending some of their money as well. We don't want them to do all of any of those options. We want a balance of them. So put the things in place, like Patrina said, make sure they have a checking and savings account available. They've got somewhere to store their money. They've got ways to spend it if they want to, so they have opportunity, but just give them their options and then let them make choices. And then when they make those choices and the consequence happens, whether that's a good or bad consequence, break it down with them. Okay, so this happened. What did you think of that? Do you feel any buyer's remorse having spent all your money on an Xbox game, or you saved everything? Do you feel like you're still very motivated to work? Are you getting internal satisfaction out of this now that you're saving all of it and not spending anything on yourself? It's not growing maybe as fast as you want to, like you could if you invested it. So maybe do you want to take a look at that? I think there's lots of fun conversations you can have as a parent with your kid.
Absolutely. Thinking even back to kind of the example of mowing a lawn. My parent had a saying, I'm providing that lawnmower to start, right? And then I'm saying to them, okay, if it's a business and you're growing and I've got that lawnmower, I'm already cutting my lawn, I'm already teaching my son how to come out with me, pick up sticks, look at the pine cones, etc., pick those up while I'm mowing with the intention of him being able to try and dabble in that. He's 4. I'm thinking I'm providing that first vehicle, right? I'm providing that first mower. But then if it breaks down, the maintenance, if he is earning money, that maintenance is going to come from his earnings. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here as to what's hand-holding my kids and coddling versus encouraging them to now make more decisions. Vincent, can you speak to this?
Yeah, it's hard in the beginning for them to be fully self-sufficient on this stuff. Like you said, like our lawnmower was the one that they used to begin with. And we slowly ease it in. We blend it in. Okay, use our lawnmower. And now, okay, let's use some of this money for the gas. We'll buy the first thing, so $5. So they can feel it. They can feel what it costs to go along the road. And if they're using our lawn for a little while, like I don't think I'm not too concerned with coddling them when they're working that hard. They eventually will work towards it. So I think it's just a parenting balance that we know what works with us. You could take a hard road approach, but if they're not earning any money because they can't mow a lawn because they need to buy it, we're not really helping them that much. So we kind of let's use what we have to begin with, and then let's build from there. And then they wind up taking that money, and what we've noticed, they feel a sense of pride in buying it. They want to go out and do it. They're like, I want to pay for the gas because they feel that. And I just want to go real back quick to the investing part, if you don't mind, because I want to add this is we have such an opportunity with our kids in terms of the money and the way that we talk about this. They're, like we said, teachable moments. I was in the car with my 13-year-old the other day, and he made over $1,000 in Florida a couple months ago with tips from his balloons. And so we started talking about it. He said, what do I do with this money? And we talked about a Roth IRA. And I described to him, like, if you save a little over $400 a month, that's $5,000 a year at 13 years old. In 6 years, that money is going to grow to more by the time you're 65 than if you start investing at 30 and investing every year since then. So we had the idea, and he's like, and it was a conversation. It was a mutual conversation. What if you took the first $400 a month that you made and you just invested it? I wish I would have done that. I'm telling him, I wish this is what I learned nobody taught me this. And if I can teach you even some of this, you do $200, you do $100, but you start that first money, I still don't have those habits down because they were never developed. If we could help them learn those habits from a young age, that they go, their future wife's going to be like, why do you do that? I don't know. I've always done it since I was 13. I haven't changed. It will be such a great thing for them to learn that most of us never learn. So I think it's real important at that young age, instead of them going to Arby's, and nothing against Arby's, but they're being taught by some manager there that we don't know. We have the opportunity to be that one that guides them. And I think a lot of times we're not taking advantage of that. So I think it's a really important part of the investment side.
So
sorry to take you off topic.
No, fantastic. I love the investing side. Would you add anything to that, Patrina? I know that what comes to mind is also that visual as well. So not just the dialogue, but also kind of the alarm bell that goes off when they see the visual of the money growing. So you've got that actual, talk to me a little bit about kind of some, the data visual that you might use to help them with the investing piece. Is it Mint? Is it like seeing it on a pie chart? Are you putting it in an Excel spreadsheet? Like, give me some examples as to what a parent might be able to do to paint that picture as to the doubling effect and how it grows.
Yeah, the one thing that I love here, Vincent, is the fact that you're having the conversation. I think that is so critical and what's missing, because we know it's not consistent. Personal finance is not consistent with our tools, and the fact that the conversations are happening. So I love that. So I wanted to make sure I say that. But as far as the visuals, what resonates really well, at least for the kids that I've had the opportunity to work with, is seeing other kids doing it, right? So sharing stories of others, stories that I may be able to pull down online or off the internet to show others. Visuals, I do a lot of visuals, pie charts and graphs. I do both, showing how money can accumulate when staying in the savings account that I talked about earlier. Because it's one thing to put it in, it's another to take it out. So the key is to not just put in, but put in and let stay in so that it's growing and earning the money. So from an investment standpoint, a lot of young people are very interested in this topic. And what I try to make sure they understand is you have to have the fundamentals mastered before you can go into a risk area. So I like that you're doing it simultaneously and doing it where you can afford it and starting very early. So what I often share is the apps that are very familiar out there, where you could buy full shares or fractional shares depending on how much you can afford to tip their toes in it, to get and understand how it happens, to watch how it works, and maybe start with one and have the education behind that so they can understand what investing is, how you can do it, and how you can earn or not from it. So again, it's the continued literacy component that gets added to that. But visual, just making sure I end with answering your direct question. Visuals, graphs, and bars, and examples of others doing what I'm trying to teach them in a particular session.
Rob, just thinking of simple startup, any examples that you would use, or kind of encouraging kids to show others their work? What have you used that you have found that has worked with that in mind?
So for Simple Startup, it's wonderful that the longer I do this, the bigger the Simple Startup community gets. So there's an online exclusive community that's only for 10 to 18-year-olds who have participated in a Simple Startup challenge already. And that community continues to grow each time I run a new challenge. And so every time a new person comes in, there's now over 260 other young entrepreneurs in that same community who can share, oh, I did a business like that already. Here's what I tried. Here's what worked. Here's what didn't work. Or, yeah, that's a great idea. Here's some things that I've done in the past, or here's some questions that I think you should try and answer. Like, they're starting to support each other. And I think, as we've all kind of alluded to, a peer or an example to follow of someone who's kind of similar to you that you can kind of identify with is a really powerful thing. So I definitely encourage parents, like, yeah, try and get kids to work together. See if you can get a couple of parents on board and say, okay, let's do like a little entrepreneurship thing together. Can your school start doing stuff like that? So have you asked your local school, like, hey, are you guys doing any sort of entrepreneurship, open houses, challenges, competitions, pitch competitions? If not, why not? And just put that question out there to them. And if they say, well, we don't know how to do it, point them in the direction of someone like Vincent or Katrina or myself, or we've had Stephen Worley on in the past. And we've all got resources that you can use to try and help build an entrepreneurship culture in a school. And I think that would be a really powerful thing to do as well.
So far I've kind of alluded to that I've got young kids, right? And I'm trying to dabble from young. But what happens if you get someone who's slightly older? So they already are a teen, they have no money experience. What would you do? So we're looking at a diverse background, someone who they haven't actually got maybe a parental support figure who is actually mentoring them through it. What advice would you give them to just start? How would you grab them with they even asking the question about, I want to try something on my own. I want to make money. What do I do? Katrina?
Yeah, so that sounds like the group of students I'm in front of all the time. So so that is another reason why I do what I do, to make sure that there's someone represented, make the group you're describing. So if others see others that are like them, whatever that is, right, that gives them hope that they can also do it too. So when you have somebody that, like you described, you make sure that they know. Find somebody that's doing what you want to do. Ask them to mentor you. Most people that are doing this work that we're doing, or doing things that people may get into, they welcome the opportunity to share with somebody that wants to get into the same game that they are. So I would encourage that, reaching out. Your network is your net worth. I teach that. So the more you know people, the more you share what you want to do, the more opportunities there are to help you along the way, and what that is. And that may not mean help you financially. That may not mean help you directly, but may help you get to the right place, connect you to the right person, connect you to the right conference or the right session, such as what Rob teaches. So it's about making sure people are aware that you know what to do, knowing where you can go to get resources to help you along the way, and know, regardless of where you come from, what you have not done thus far, that you can do whatever you want. You have to put the work in, but it's possible to make, I'll call it, those dreams come true. So that's what I encourage and foster, and it's why I try to get in front of as many young people as I can that are would be defined the way that you just defined.
Would any of you like to add to that? Vincent?
Yeah, I think it's such a tough topic, because if you don't have parental involvement, right, how are you going to get the influence with the kid if you're not a teacher, if you're not a relative? That's a tough one, because I go towards, like, I'm not sure how I would, get a hold of that. Like, so I speak to the parents, because I know the parents have the opportunity at the influence. I'm not in school, so I don't know how to navigate that very much. But I want to talk to are the parents that maybe aren't seeing this opportunity for their kids, because they were an employee, their spouse is an employee, and that's just what you do. You just get a job. And that's where I think the rub happens around 14 or 15 years old, is like, which way are you going? Are you going to Chick-fil-A, or are you starting your own thing? And, in our family group back in Pittsburgh, pretty much everybody went towards they're getting a job. They're working at the donut shop, they're working at Chick-fil-A. And so we got to have those conversations with our kids. We're driving around, like, nothing wrong with that. Despite it, But you can go work Chick-fil-A. It's $5.75 an hour or whatever the rate is, whatever it is. But when you start talking about 4 hours at this rate, you're going to be taxed on it, right? You are going to have to wear a uniform. You're going to have to be there an hour early. You have to be there an hour late. You're going to come away after 3 days with about $40. I don't know what it would be. You go mow a lawn in an hour, you make $40. And we kind of almost just know which way are you going to go. Are you going to want to control your future, or are you going to want your future more in the hands of somebody else where they get to control your schedule from a very young age, kind of shaping out what life is going to look like, which direction you want to go. Now, a lot of people want the job. They want the security. If you have an entrepreneurial spirit, you're going to get very frustrated very quickly with somebody controlling your time. And I wish somebody at 15 would have said to me, like, you're probably not employer material. Let me just tell you that by your personality. Maybe just start your own thing. I don't think everybody should go there because we need employees, but I think not enough people are being guided to understand at 15 you could start your own thing. And the fact that they don't have pressure and they don't have a mortgage and they don't have a spouse, they don't have kids, what better time to fail and learn than now? And we don't take advantage of that.
I think something that Patrina kind of alluded to in her conversation was also who you're surrounding yourself with, right? Who are you looking at in your space, in your community, and who are they? They could be your mentor. Who are you looking at for the next step? Rob, tell me a little bit about, so you've got some kids, who you would send them to look at, right? You've got them excited about their idea, but they are wanting to go into the space themselves and dabble. Would you encourage them to go and speak to young entrepreneurs, actually have a conversation with them? What would you tell them?
Yeah, go find peers who are doing it already. And really the first one I would say is go find your competition. You want to do a baking company, go find out who the other baking companies are in your area, particularly not the shop bakeries, but the ones who are maybe doing it out of their home or doing it just by special order, the ones that you're going to try and basically replicate, and give them a call or reach out to them on social media and say like, hey, I'm brand new. I want to start something really similar to what you're doing. Would you mind giving me some pointers on how to get started, or basically avoid the wrong turns? Like that's really what I would want to do if someone came to me and said, I want to start a business like yours. I want to give them the more streamlined path to get to where they want to be and share my experience of all of the do's and don'ts along the way. And most people will share that. There's very few people who will look at you and be like, whoa, you're trying to take my business. I'm not talking to you. Get out of here, kid. There's very few people who are going to do that.
Yeah, and may I just add real quick? Yeah, so I think too, what I do love this year, I see more of it now, the spirit of collaboration. I think a lot of people think that people won't share because you're competition. And I always use the example, usually there's McDonald's, Wendy's, and Burger King right around one another. Pepsi and Coke sit in the coolers right next to each other. So people are going to buy from whomever they want to buy from and whatever their choice is of the day. So people do not shy away from sharing, to Rob's point, because you may be doing the same thing, because in this day and age, people are not as afraid of competition. They think of potential collaboration opportunities, or they think of just sharing because I've gone through this, I learned from this, don't go down that path, go this way, you'll get there quicker, or whatever it is. So I agree that people are very open to sharing to help the next person not go through 2 years worth of the wrong direction, that they can go the other way. It really, really, really is something that happens on a day-to-day basis.
Or like Vincent, if a young up-and-coming photographer came to you and said, look, I want to start shooting weddings, and you're like, well, that's my space, I'm in weddings. I don't think you're going to feel very threatened, because you're like, I'm up here, this is my level, this is where my clientele are. I can help you get in the ground and start working. And we're probably not going to be going after the exact same clientele anyway, because we both offer something different in terms of our experience, our pricing, our final product. Most people are going to feel very comfortable in what they're offering. And if they don't, that's a bit of insecurity on their own end, and they probably don't have a very strong business to start with. Would you agree with that?
Without a doubt. Yeah. Without a doubt. And our middle son is the perfect example. He's 13. He was doing the balloon animals. We saw a guy at a local restaurant doing balloon animals. That's where the idea came from. He saw somebody else doing it. He was like, could I try that? Started doing it. Well, okay. Part of our whole thing is networking. Building a network is very important. Communication, collaboration. Reach out to him. Ask him any questions. So he did. He reached out to him. The guy was so nice. He said, why don't you come? They met, and he showed him how to do certain balloons. Well, he then, I can't remember what it was. He gave him ideas on the business card. And then about a year ago, he had a balloon. I don't even know what you call it. It's a rolling balloon case where he keeps all his balloons, an air pump, gave it to him as a gift and guided him on the things that went wrong with his business. Absolutely. Like Nolan could come in and really start possibly taking some of it. He didn't care. He was just helping him to see that and to see how he was guided that way. And then to get a push from him and advice from him was invaluable. And we all should be doing that once we're in that spot of experience. So yeah.
And absolutely. It's also a reminder to encourage our kids to kind of take the risk. It's exciting to see how good our community actually is and how many people want to help one another, as long as you are willing to put in the work ethic and put in the grit, right? And so when you see someone else doing something, it's encouraging. You want to see them succeed. And that's a reminder to tell our kids that. Yeah. Give it a go. Other people do actually want to see you succeed, especially in a space that they're passionate about, because they've put a lot of time into finding more out about that. So we are coming to the end of our evening tonight. And I know we've had a couple of discussions that have gone fantastically, but is there anything else that you guys would like to add to the conversation that hasn't been touched on yet? I'm going to shoot it your way, Vincent.
Yeah, I think a conversation that we have that I'm really glad we had it from an early on. It's from Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki's, the idea of like the rich invest in assets and the poor invest in liabilities. And to be able to go through that with our kids from 11 years old, and we be in the car and they're like, what's an asset? What's an asset? Something you invest in that goes up in value. A liability is something you put your money that goes down in value. To have that foundation from the very beginning in terms of where you're putting money, assets, like we talked about, investments that are going to go up, even equipment in terms of your business that's going to bring you more money, as opposed to what's the first thing we go to? I want to buy that remote control car. Eventually, their friends talking about what's their favorite car they want to buy. It's all wonderful, but it's essentially liability. If they know from the beginning which category that they're going to put their money towards, we've noticed just from their own thinking is they're really starting to think more in terms of assets instead of liabilities, where when it was me, it was all liabilities. It was at that point, it was all liabilities. So to have that foundation to begin with, I think is a really great way to start the conversation with our young kids.
Rob, anything you want to add?
I'm going to go back to a point that you mentioned earlier about not wanting to feel like we were coddling our kids. And one thing that didn't get said was when your child shows an interest in starting a business, we're not encouraging them to spend tons of money. Like, we're not saying get all the equipment. We're not saying like do all the stuff, make the website, print the banners. Like, go test that idea out first and try and start for free. So like the idea of you letting your kids use your lawnmower, for me, I'd be like, all right, well, that's fine. You can use it to go make money mowing other people's lawns, but you're going to mow our lawn for free. And there's our trade straight away. Or you don't have a lawnmower, your neighbor does, offer to mow their lawn for free and see, can you use their lawnmower to go mow 5 other people's lawns, and you'll put gas in it. And like, it's just a great way to just start for free. That means there's no risk. They're not going to lose money from doing it. They can decide after a couple of weeks, you know what, nobody really wants this, and I haven't blown a ton of money doing it. It's definitely the way I would encourage most people to start a business, is start with the basic version and start first close to free as possible and test that idea and make sure people actually want it.
And I think if I'm correct, that is it Rebel Entrepreneur? I think Alan talks a little bit about how you kind of start in your means. So you make sure that you don't actually have to spend something at the start to make money. You can actually look at what you've already got. So I think one of the things he mentioned in one of his episodes was even cooking. You could go ahead and get the money up front before if you went into a cooking business, you've got the money before you make the dish. So there are ways for kids to kind of be creative and thoughtful as to how they get started. So you guys have given us a wealth of knowledge tonight and dabbled into your skill sets, and we're so thankful for having you. Is there anything that you would like to mention this evening in terms of closing? You might want to direct some of our audience to your websites. So if you don't mind, Vincent, you go first, then Rob, and then Patrina. If you can mention your website again for everyone, and just basically anything that you would encourage them to look at on your website, or any courses that you might be offering or doing that might encourage parents to dabble a little bit further and have good conversations with their kids. Vincent?
Yeah, for sure. Our website's totallifefreedom.com. it's any bit of every bit of information. But we have a free course on there. We talk a lot about building a network. Might be a little bit much for a young kid, but it would be a good conversation for a parent because I think we haven't learned this. So we have a free course on there in terms of building a powerful network. So it's all at totallifefreedom.com. On Instagram, we're Total Life Freedom 1 if you want to connect with me. Thank you.
Fantastic. Rob?
Okay, so for the Simple Startup, you can go to thesimplestartup.com. That'll have a blog that I put out every week, which is aimed at young entrepreneurs, parents, and teachers. There is a Simple Startup Challenge that you can join. My group courses that I do are summer and winter. The summer one is already run. The winter one will be coming up in January, but there is an on-demand course you can sign up to if you're interested. And I did flash up a link earlier. This is choosify.com/ideas. This is a document called 102 Business Ideas for Young Entrepreneurs. So just 102 ideas that a young entrepreneur could start really quickly, really cheap. And it's just kind of a nice menu to look through with your kids and be like, okay, what do you see on here that maybe you would like to do? And it can start that entrepreneurship muscle working before maybe they discover something bigger and better, like balloon animals or letting kids pet your tarantula, that sort of thing.
Which I have petted, by the way. And then lastly, Patrina, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on. My name is Patrina Dixon. My website is itsmymoney.info. That's ITSMY. Oh, it's up there on the screen. Itsmymoney.info. To point you directly on the site, I think for parents, I would encourage you to go to the resource tab. So when you go to my website, you can go to the tab marked resources. On there's a lot of free resources up for yourself that you can also work with your young kids on. And there's a free coloring book on there that you can put down the financial coloring book to introduce financial concepts. So on Instagram, I'm at itsmymoney_. I would love for you all to check me out there. I'll be rid of it. I'm trying to get to the number 6,000. I'm almost there. So I would love for you all to follow over there. I do put a lot of free content out there. And when I have things that are going on that your students or your children could attend, I make sure that I promote it over there. So it's mymoneyjournal.info, and on Instagram, it's mymoney_. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again for joining us, everyone. It's been a wonderful evening. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. And in summation, all of us would agree, start your kids young. Start having the conversations and make sure that they start today. Anything, whatever idea they have, mentor them through it. Not handhold, mentor them. Let them make those trial and error mistakes and guide them through it. So we do have, this is a summer series, and we do have some to follow. Next week, we've got one on travel, which is exciting. And we do go through the remainder of the summer all the way to August 13th. So we've got some great concepts that are still coming up as we explore every Tuesday night at 8 Eastern Time. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And until next week, Tuesday, goodbye.